is a racing game not a racing game? No, really, think of a time when you picked up something expecting it to be a racer or a driving style game, only to find it's something completely different. Unless it's a mobile tapper game, I'm not really sure it's ever happened to me before. If it's got cars, you tend to find some elements of driving, no matter how limited it may be. This is where you all act shocked when I tell you in 1988, yes, I'm going with 88, despite the other publications saying 91, simply because the only copies I've seen are revised versions, not the original, so I will stick to the arcademuseum.com's listed dates, if you don't mind, thank you very much. When I tell you in 1988, Tatsumi Electronics Co. released the, not racing, but rather beat-em-up game, Cycle Warriors. Essentially using their previous work on Buggy Boy, aka Speed Buggy, no, not that one from the 70s, and TX1 as a jumping off point, Tatsumi attempted to get ahead of the early 90s beat-em-up boom. Being such a small name in video games meant it was largely ignored by most arcade owners, in favour of other games that were either more driving focused like Chase HQ, or more deeply entrenched in the Double Dragon beat-em-up formula, like Golden Axe or Final Fight. The strange visual hybrid combined with its poor marketing meant Tatsumi couldn't quite get its foot in the door with this game. Which is a shame because it's rather unique and has some interesting ideas that could have produced a great sequel that alas we will never see. Now, just so we're clear, this is one of those 4-player arcade style beat-em-ups. Up goes up on the screen, down goes down, left and right goes across, pushing the jump button pops a wheelie before launching your bike into the air, and lastly attack, well, attacks. In fact, if we didn't have these bikes and the perpetually scrolling pseudo 3D road in the background, this could well be TMNT in regards to its gameplay mechanics. Actually, hold up. This is a full version of the level Neon Knight Riders from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 Turtles in Time game on the SNES. I mean, look at it. It's exactly the freaking same, just with bikes instead of hoverboards. Anyway, yes, this is a basic beat-em-up control layout, with the only real exception being, as you move up the screen, you actually accelerate and get a bit faster. Oh, and of course you can tap left or right to adjust your attack and decide which direction you're facing. Normally this wouldn't need to be pointing out to a player who is travelling horizontally, but here, with the adjusted perspective, it's essential info so you don't spend forever flailing in the wrong direction. The game has 4 characters to play with, each with different faster, slower movement and attacks. You've got Bob Brazil, born in '58, riding a Harley and wielding a giant tomahawk, who is slow to manoeuvre and has a somewhat slower attack than the others. Next you have Boyd Baker, born in '68, swinging a chain mace riding a Honda CR45 OR. He's your average rider, sitting about medium for attacks and movement. Then there's Bill Bigman, born in '64, riding another Honda, the VFR 75 OR, and this time jousting with a giant medieval lance. His movement is the quickest, but definitely has the slowest attack of everyone. Finally, there's Billy Barrymore, the totally not a girl character, with no birth date, wonder why, atop a Honda ATC 25OR, a 3-wheeled tri-bike? Off-road thing? And she's swinging around a nice big battle hammer. She moves the slowest, but definitely has the quickest attack. Now the aim of the game is simple. Attack and defeat all the enemies on screen before your health meter runs out. To help you survive, there are some quite unique ways of dropping health in this one. Instead of your standard food items lying on the road, this time you get them hand-delivered by a slightly overweight lady running alongside you with a cart full of meat on the bone. There's this bunny girl riding a hot air balloon that'll throw you down snacks as well. Or of course there's this girl that's on roller skates that can move as fast as you guys can, and she'll quite happily hand out your dinner. And let me just say, quite frankly, whatever diner this lass is from, she ain't getting paid anywhere near enough. And your energy does replenish at the end of a stage, just to make things a touch easier. There is a story in that you are a vigilante group out to stop the mob or something like that, but it becomes very Japanese 80s anime very quickly, and you fight some really odd enemies on the road. Speaking of which, these are lined with booby traps and giant red balls rolling at you, and yeah, it's not even worth trying to make sense of it all, just let it take you for a ride. Enemy AI is poor, and the hardest parts are scripted events where typically it's a flying enemy dropping obstacles like tyres or explosives into your path. Even bosses, who are reused far too quick and often, are simple patterns that really you just need to get beside or ahead of and hammer the attack button to defeat. The only real challenge comes from dodging those scripted attacks that will essentially get you reaching into your wallet cursing all the way. As for the length of the game, there are 7 stages, a big boss fight, around about 25 minutes of overall gameplay, not so bad considering the arcade beat 'em up style we're going with. But anyway, gameplay is run of the mill, but what really makes the game pop is the graphics. The large, colourful sprites look great for 88, heck they even look good in 91. Well, for the most part anyway. All of the player characters are distinct, even down to their bikes and weapons. Enemies, despite being repeated and palette swapped, look great, and some are pretty unique. The hand-cranked helicopter guys that you knock out of the sky can even recover if you fail to attack quickly enough, which is a very nice touch. Bosses go from generic to odd to kaiju quality. Muscle dudes, then muscle dude creating fire, same guy throwing melons. It's not the greatest selection ever, but they're not terrible, I suppose. Then you've got things like 5 fire trucks stacked on top of each other, which is different, but also equally ridiculous. Then there's this scorpion lobster thing. I was escaping from the police and suddenly dodging pistons and electricity, and so I could fight a mobilised crustacean that drives backwards? And then don't get me started on the monster with a giant space tongue and the circular saws that also drives backwards for no discernible reason. And don't even get me started on this alien robot tank thing that is the final boss. I'm done at this point trying to make sense of it all. Unsurprisingly, the best art is in the cutscenes, where all the characters look great and emote brilliantly for an arcade game in 88. Shame there isn't more of it. The worst of the graphics are the background sprites, but then I suppose they have to be quite bland and generic, because they're zipping past you at 1,000,000,000 miles an hour, repeating ad nauseum. So it's not really a deal breaker, it's just something I noticed. And yeah, at this point I'm going to hold my hands up and say the graphics aren't 100% perfect in this footage. So if it looks unfinished or glitchy, that's not the game's fault, but rather my hardware. Bearing this in mind, the sound quality may also have been affected. The digitised audio clips sound great, music is largely forgettable but nice enough, but the sound effects, all the engines and grunts and thuds, all cut each other off and don't combine for a pleasant experience. I mean, separately, the sounds are fine, nice and chunky, but they're unpleasant when my hardware tries to cope with everything it's trying to deal with here. Frankly, there's not really much else to say about this. Cycle Warriors is a bit of an anomaly for this series, but relevant nonetheless. The bottom line here is this is not Road Rash. I did make this comparison previously, as did a few others, but we were definitely wrong. This is not a racing game or a driving game. This is purely a beat 'em up on motorcycles. So for driving fans, this isn't what you're looking for. Road Rash fans will probably get a bit bored of this too quickly. As for beat 'em up fans, it's definitely worth a look for its unique style, but I doubt it's got lasting appeal. So unless you really have to play and own every single beat 'em up ever released, frankly, I think you've seen what this game has to offer by watching this video. I've been Timmus TSET, this has been Crash TSET, that was Cycle Warriors. Buckle up, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next drive.